Good afternoon. Can I introduce Donna Uden to you from ITV, or was from ITV until very recently, but Donna was my fixer for everything, project manager and workplace manager and all sorts of things for this project I'm going to talk about today. I just want to put this in, my name is Ian Jones. I'm Director of Workplace Services and Estates for ITV, which is a really posh title for being the person who looks after the toilets. Okay. I am a facilities manager by trade and will always be a facilities manager by trade, although they've given me property for the last 10 years to look after as well. We've got 60 buildings in this country, and it's an international company. A lot of people don't realise this ITV. We probably do more business in America than we do in the UK, but everybody knows ITV is Channel 3, or most of you will know ITV is Channel 3. I was going to start this presentation one way, but I'm actually going to start it just a slightly different way, just to give you a little bit of context. Why do I care about sustainability? So I've known Anne now for nearly 20 years. We met when we were working for a little waste company, and I can always remember standing in the yard with Anne in her hobnail boots and her hard hat on, and we were watching stuff come off the back of trucks, and we could not believe what we're actually throwing away that could genuinely be used again. And I said to her then, even this was in 2006, and I said to her then, if I'm ever in a position to be able to do something better than where I'm seeing people come from with this, I said, then I'm going to make sure that we do it. And so my interest really started relatively recently in terms of sustainability. And what we've done at ITV since then is everything we've ever done, we've started to look at from a sustainable point of view. So I've been there 14 years, Donna's been there about 55 years or something like that.
I joined when I was 16 and it was 44 years.
44 years,
I'm not as old as he makes me out to be. We're exactly the same age, eh? I'm 2 months older than Ian.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. But we looked at everything that we did in some old buildings and new buildings and things that we did through that lens of sustainability. What can we do using what we've got, and could we do something different? Okay. So that's kind of the context of this. I'm going to talk about specifically about a project that we've just finished. It's taken us 3 years to do it. I thought the JLL presentation was superb because you said things with an awful lot more words than I'll ever be able to even pronounce. And in here, what we've got is a much simpler presentation with lots of pictures. This is where it all started for us 10 years ago, and this is where our relationship, funnily enough, with Crown started 10 years ago. Because we were trying to create some space, some extra space in our tower. We used to have the tower that's on the south bank. It's a very tight tower. There were 1,250 people crammed into that very small space. But we wanted to create a new club space in the middle of the tower so that everybody could come, because nobody had anywhere to actually go to mix. We never had that space. So what we had to do is to try and work out how the hell we can get still the same number of people in. And in those days, everybody had a desk. If you remember those days, probably long gone now for a lot of people. We had to still get the same number of people in, but knowing that only 60% of them ever turned up at any one time anyway, and those numbers haven't changed, but 6%, we thought, what can we do? So what we ended up with was cutting down the existing desks that we had. So these were all 1600s, and they were all Benet, fantastic, beautiful desks. And we thought, what can we do with them? And Donna found a contact in Crown. Who was it, Phil? Or I'm not quite sure who it was here.
Neil Druitt.
Neil Druitt in those days. And we said, if we send you a load of desks, tell us what you can do with these. So anyway, they ended up coming back with 1600s converted into 1 metre and 1200 desks. And so the people who were there most of the time, only 60% of the people there, they took the bigger desks on the day they were there. And then everyone else who turned up occasionally took the smaller desks. So we thought, hang on, it can still work this. What that did, though, on every tower floor, created us about 2,000 square feet on a floor, and with that we were able to then put in nice environments for the staff, which they'd never had before. So it was all good to them. And even though they had smaller desks as a result of it, they felt quite good because we'd given them something in return. But it helped us. But that's kind of how we ended up with this journey. That opportunity then took us really forward to 2020. So the COVID crisis, it's three months old, and ITV decided already that working from home was a good thing for the staff because we could do an awful lot. So unless you're in front of the camera or just behind the camera, much of the back office stuff could all be done somewhere else. So we actually actively encourage people to work out how they can work from home, come into the office 1 or 2 days a week. Of course, that ended up then with a load of property that we didn't actually need. So the first way of being sustainable was reduce the property portfolio that we had, which is what we did. So we had some leases coming up in 2022 and 2023 on 2 big buildings, both 100,000 square feet. And we thought, let's see what we can do. So we were given an objective by the finance director actually to reduce the footprint by 40%, introduce a new way of working, because as I said, everybody all had a desk each still, to give staff a place they really wanted to work in, but to do this as sustainably as possible, because he, as a finance director, really was a greenie, right? Better than I've seen many people, but he really wanted us to do that sustainably. Good thing about that, sponsorship, right? You get yourself a high-level sponsor in any company, you're going to be on the way. Careful how hard I press that. There we go. So we invented, the first thing we did is a whole new way of working. So we called it Manhattan. We called the Manhattan way of working. And if those of you have ever been to New York, you'll know Manhattan's got neighborhoods, and we've talked about neighborhoods for years in this country. Oh, we're going to set up neighborhoods and so on. So that was all new for ITV because everyone had a desk. So it didn't really matter. So we talked about neighborhoods, and we used Manhattan as our illustration. And of course, Manhattan is broken down into blocks. So we made furniture our blocks, okay? So this is basically a floor that we just dressed up, a drawing that we just dressed up to try and get across to people how neighbourhoods work together in the village, effectively. Neighbourhoods work together, and within each neighbourhood, you have a series of blocks, and these blocks are largely interchangeable. So you can change your things in there. So we then came back to Crown and said, right, we want a furniture system that will allow us to do that. So there's the brief to Crown, a flexible workstation system with a common footprint and design using the least number of different components. Now, if you're a facilities manager and you've done moves and changes, or a moves and changes person, and you've moved the people around, you will know the amount of bits and pieces that are left of furniture that's when it's put together. There's a leg over here and a top over there, and there's all these well-engineered bits and pieces left. There's always stuff left. So we said we don't want any of that. We'd like you to give us something that will give us a common footprint, but designed with the least number of components that you could put into a set of workstations. This is the photographs I took. Actually, we made several visits here, and we did many drawings, and we got the guy who was doing his nut in the end, but we had all sorts of different shapes and sizes to do something completely different than we'd done before. And this was the trials of the various things that we did. But anyhow, we ended up with this. So this is how most of our offices are fitted out. We've still got some desks as well. So we have kept desks for people who are in the office all the time. We still give them a desk, but most people aren't. So we've got the hex, the square, and the circle, and they all fit into a 2.4 metre footprint. And if you lay them out like Manhattan in blocks, you can interchange that for that, or that for two of those, or you can put a breakout space in the middle of everything just by literally taking one out and putting another one in. Whereas in the past we were forever having to move rows and rows of desks and loads of bits and pieces. All the infrastructure had to be moved. We don't need to do that anymore. So that's what we designed. We got Crown to build it. If you can see that, we've managed to get black legs there and black legs there, and those are completely interchangeable. So we can actually use one leg with another leg, so dead easy. There's no support network underneath that or that, but we had to have it with the square. We found the actual 2 metre square, when you have two people balancing on it, it's a little bit down, so we actually had a metal bar put in there. So that's the only extra component that's contained in there. And they each came with cable management, and they each came with a position to put a screen on if you wanted to. Hexes were done for people who were in the office 2 or 3 days, okay, and wanted to group in clusters. 6 people around there. That's really good because you can talk to 5 people directly like that. Whereas if you're on a block of 6, you're shouting across everybody if you're talking to the person on the end. So they work really well. Circles, there's no screens on them. These are the people who are dropping in, doing their bits and pieces. They're there for half an hour and they bugger off. And then these are for people who, there's a lot of people in ITV working in pairs because they're working on a program and what have you. They're watching edited video and they're doing, so they can swap, they can sit together working on 2 screens together. That's what we ended up doing. Oh, we had lots of these as well. So diners, everybody loves a diner. We had loads of them. Interestingly, I was in there earlier, having a cup of tea and turned around and thought it was one of our diners.
Probably was.
Because it probably was one of our diners. Yeah, we had quite a few diners left over when we'd finally moved and we brought them back. And I walked in there and I'm sure that was one of ours. But we had them all recovered. So the stuff that we already had was quite tatty in it. It had the old colours in it, the old corporate colours and stuff. We just brought it here. We brought the whole lot. Bloody lorry loads, and got it all recovered, different colours and what have you, and sent it all back again. These things then all started to arrive for staff, so we started to test this out. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's difficult to test, but we started to test it out. But we were fairly sure of what we were going to be presenting when the time came to move people. So that's where we started with our sustainability thing. So reduce the office footprint, reuse whatever we can from our old buildings in our new building, and give away or sell what we can't reuse ourselves, and send nothing to landfill if possible. Anne's absolutely right about the landfill bit. Everyone says that you can do it, nothing goes to landfill. It's absolute rubbish. There's something between 0 and 10% of everything that we produce you can't realistically recycle it, so you can't go. What was interesting also, and Anne said this earlier, about recycling. Recycling used to be the starting point for everybody. Now, if we got to recycling, we were disappointed. We wanted to get beyond that, okay? And that's where we started from. So those were our objectives. And here are some of the things we did, very, very simply. This was the floor plan of the building that we took over. So the BBC building that is in White City, the BBC were moving out of, it's a broadcast building. We're a broadcaster. It was perfect. So we went in there, got a really good deal on the rent, bang, straight in. But it was laid out like this. It looked like an old chicken factory, the old unbelievable. It was just rows upon rows upon rows of benches as you walked around. It was just not inspiring at all. And we knew that Manhattan would fit into here perfectly, into these different zones, into these spaces. We could have lots of different neighbourhoods, different sizes. We knew this would work perfectly for us. But they also had, I'm just going to point these out, all these meeting rooms already built. So when we went to see the place, they said, oh, we'll clear the whole floor for you and you can start off. And we went, no, hang on, don't do that yet. So we ended up keeping these meeting rooms. We ended up keeping the T points that they had, both ends of the floor. We ended up keeping all their print hubs because there was nothing really wrong with them. So there's the print hubs that they had before. All we did was paint them a different colour. So there's nothing wrong with that. And it looks exactly like something we would have built ourselves. The meeting rooms they had were all these beige things in wood, and they had lots and lots of this stuff everywhere. We just painted it all out, and we added our own brand to it. So that became that very, very easily. The kitchens, this was the biggest surprise, and also I was a bit annoyed, but they weren't DDA compliant when we got them. We'd have thought the BBC, you're going to be DDA compliant. They weren't. We had to spend quite a bit of money just converting these, but it was better and easier and quicker for us to convert what they had than to demolish all of this and just rebuild it again, you know? So it seemed a bit nuts. So we added a few little bits and pieces to it. We put zip taps in and these new zip taps, which are a bit like Tai Chi. If you've ever tried them, they're really, really interesting. Instead of buttons anymore, you only put your hand near it. But because of COVID, we thought that was a good idea. But the number of people we get, staff going like this. But anyway, we reused all of that, again from the BBC, just put our own little marker on it. We took out most of the infrastructure from our old buildings. We had time to do it. It was mentioned earlier by JLL team about if you've got time, okay? We made time to do this because we had a staggered set of leases. We could take one of the floors later than the others. We were able to strip one building. We literally stripped that building. We took out all the underfloor infrastructure from it. These are all the cables and everything that we were parcelling up as we were removing them. And we took them all with us. That saved about £250,000, right? So it was worth doing, but it reused everything. We had it recertified, put it back under the floor, carried on. This is my favourite. We nicked the carpet, okay? That carpet had only been on the floor for 3 years. There was nothing wrong with it. It was perfect. And of course, we'd laid it about 2019, so COVID happened, so nobody had trod on the damn thing. So I saw the landlord, and when we were doing a dilapidations negotiation, I just said to him, what are you doing with all the stuff that we leave? He said, oh, we'll just rip it out because we're going to rip the floors out and we're going to refurbish the whole thing because it were quite old floors. And I said, can I take stuff with me? And he went, you can have whatever you like. Happy days. So we took the carpet, and which was brilliant, and we relayed the whole of this carpet in the third floor of the building that we had now. Saved a fortune, but it's the best way of doing it. You can get recycled carpets and you can buy recycled carpets, but just take the bloody carpets that you've got with you. That easy. We took all the catering stuff as well. So we had one building which had a lovely catering kitchen, and we knew we were going to need a hospitality kitchen here. So we just unbolted it all, stuck it in storage until the time we needed it. We had a really good contractor, so we worked with Overbury. Anybody who's worked with Overbury, we had a really good contractor. And I've worked with the particular team in Overbury for 20 years off and on in many different jobs. And the guys know me, and they knew exactly what I wanted to do. They were in, stripping stuff out, and it was straight in storage, literally within a couple of weeks as us saying we're going to be doing this, because he knew that we would ask for it to come to here. So that's what we did. We stripped it out, and we put it back into our new space. all the kitchen, all the kitchen, wrong, all of the furniture, as I've mentioned. We reused every single stick of furniture that we had. We refurbished the bits that we wanted to, because some of this was in quite bright, all corporate colours, so we got rid of that, dumbed it down a little bit, brought it here, got it all recovered, and that's the carpet that we took up, which is now laid on the 3rd floor in that building. Branding, right, so everybody loves a bit of branding, but my God, it does cost a lot, this stuff. These things, these panels cost us about £2,500 a pop to put on the wall. But the actual screen that's on front of it is just silk printed screen, right? It costs you about 50 quid to actually get done again. So this, although it cost me a lot of money to put on the wall, it's cheap as chips to change. And we make a lot of programs and we like to put the new programs up on what have you. So it's cheap as chips to change. But Donna said, well, why don't we take them with us? And I went, well, why not? So 30 of them we took off the wall and put 30 of them back on the walls in the other place. It's just a matter of identifying it and getting in there before everybody else to get what we needed out of there. And this stuff, right, so I don't know if any of the designers are in here, but if you've ever used key clamp, this is the stuff that you normally find on top of buildings as safety railings and things like that, okay? So we've always used this, we've used it for a long time now, but we actually construct our things for our big AV displays that we've got. And the beauty of all of that system that you see there, the only thing that I had to buy or change when we moved this was the 2 things that go into the ceiling to hold it up, because they just needed to be slightly longer because the floor to ceiling heights were different. That was it. They have to go onto the slab and onto the slab to hold everything down. But that's the only thing we had to change. This unbolts. So we had the whole lot unbolted, and I don't know how many of these we've actually got as a presentation space, but we used every single one of them again. And the beauty is you can mix and match. So we made bigger ones, 8 television walls, something like that.
Loads of television walls.
Loads and loads of television walls. And then we even took our reception desk. So we deliberately designed our reception desk so that we could move it. But we didn't realise we were going to be moving quite so far. But we still took it apart and took it with us and put it back together again. So we were able to do that. Again, it saves a lot of money, saves a lot of time and effort. The amount of design work that went into the original one, I wouldn't like to have done it a second time. But anyway, we took that lot with us because we could. And that gives you an idea, roughly, on this particular project, what we saved. Because we didn't demolish all those rooms and we just refurbished those rooms, the T-points, the print hubs, the underfloor power, carpet, and all of those other things that you see there, it's about 2.3 million quid that we would have spent knocking everything down and rebuilding everything just like that, right, that we didn't need to spend. But what a story, what a story. The staff, when we explained to them what we were going to do, thought it was a brilliant idea. So that's exactly what we did. Now, total carbon saved, so many tons. Somebody told me this was about 180 tons of carbon that we saved. And whatever. I don't know whether that's true or not. The problem with talking about carbon, and that's the only time you'll see carbon mentioned on this presentation, is that people don't understand what carbon looks like. People in this room might, because you're all kind of people who might understand it. But if I said to somebody on the street, what does a ton of carbon look like? They would have no idea. So you have to make carbon, you have to talk about things that they really understand. So we're not going to do a ton of carbon, but we're actually going to replace all the carpets. And, oh, that's a good idea, because it'll save a lot of the environment, you know? You have to put it into things that people actually understand. Now, we said try nothing to landfill. We got down to the last knockings, literally, of furniture that we couldn't send to another person, to another company to reuse. And a lot of it was because the furniture was quite old and it didn't have the tags still on, the fireproofing tags. You've got to have these things these days for a lot of companies before they'll take them because of the risk. Some companies will and some companies did, but most of them won't. So we ended up with a guy in our little, in one of our little storerooms, and whatever, and he took apart literally all of the furniture we could, wooden components over here, material over here, and basically the foam rubber went into there. You found an outlet for foam rubber, didn't you? Yeah,
we were working with that just when I left, and it was going to be sort of recycled into where they have children's playgrounds and things like that. So yeah, I mean, that Bywaters in the end did work with us to
find it.
Yeah, I mean,
so that was the hardest thing. It was the foam rubber bit.
That was the hardest bit, wasn't it? Yeah,
the
really old stuff. The really old stuff.
Yeah, the really old stuff hadn't got those fire things, but we still managed to do it. Now people go, oh my God, that must have cost you a fortune. And actually, it didn't cost us any more to get a bloke to come in and do that than it would have done to dispose of that in a landfill or somewhere else. So it was worth doing. And again, the story, the photos we were able to take, and the story we were able to tell is good. We didn't stop even there though. So that's on the project, right? What you do is load a project. You're going to move a load of group of people from A to B. They want to take a load of crap with them, right? We encouraged everybody because we wanted them to work differently, not to take all the crap with them. So this was a storeroom that we had. So what did we do? We closed the storage spaces. Okay, so the areas that we had in different places in London, we said, right, we're going to close them as part of this as an economy drive. We're going to close it. So you can only take not even 10% of what you had. But we managed to get everybody to go through every single cardboard box. And the stuff that we did want to keep, we put it into boxes like this and asset tagged the whole lot. So that now people, if they need something, they can look on there first and say, oh, you've got that, can we borrow that? If you think about what we do in terms of production, we make lots and lots of different programs, but a lot of them have got some common things like, I don't know, every production's got tea urns and ironing boards and all that sort of stuff. We closed one building, we found 6 ironing boards in the store that people had just bought. No, we'll buy another one, buy another one, buy another one. Absolutely not. So we've now got everything in one store, all labelled like this, so that people will reuse it again
and they
again.
share it across production, so it's a bit like an eBay thing. So, you know, Saturday night takeaway.
And it's worked well, isn't it? They were all a bit doubtful at
in
first.
for a penny, borrow their ironing board. So it's much better. Otherwise, each production is buying.
But it was everywhere, wasn't it?
I know, we've never seen anything like it. It's incredible.
But again, so it taught them a thing, and we could do it. We then held staff sales. So a lot of this rubbish that we found everywhere, we got it all together like that and sold it back to the staff. Brilliant. I loved it. The guy from Love Island came round here and he went, oh, I've been looking for some of these, and he bought all these. But we didn't like to tell him it was Love Island from a series before that hadn't removed the stuff, and we'd got it and we'd given it back, and he bought it back, which is great. Because we've now got a guide dog, you know. So we used our money. We set up a Just Giving page. We didn't charge anybody for anything. We just said it's just donation only. And staff donated money for it. And we've got one guide dog and we've got 3 legs of the other one already. So we just went to get
it's real good is staff engagement into the whole, you know, because they wanted to know where it was all going and said, well, will you come and be part of this, you know?
They absolutely loved it, and the fact that we do it. And now we get the guide dogs, they come every year to us now, so they all walk around the thing and we do things for them. It's great. So, but that's a good thing that you can do from all the rubbish that people have got. Do you want to talk a little bit about this bit, Donna?
Yeah, so this was a really big piece, and I think what's key, and I think you alluded to it, it's really important to start planning around reuse as early on as possible. You know, don't wait till the project started, because it does take time, and there is the logistics, and where do we keep it all, and, you know, stuff like that. So we did that, and that was really important. And so we worked with Office Resale and Crown, so a lot of furniture came here, it was recovered for us to come back, or other ITV sites, or resold on, or charities. We also did a bit of direct work with British Art Foundation, and particularly the Salvation Army. They've got a massive superstore in Northampton, and they were really keen. And they came to London. They had truck upon truck upon truck, never charged us for it, took it back there. We had a huge amount of kids' merchandise around Thunderbirds. I've never seen so much in all my life. It's all in the Northampton store. We also work with some schools and colleges, particularly this one, the Totteridge Academy. They had never had a decent place for the sixth form to go and study and collaborate and everything, and just by giving the furniture that we did, that was just amazing. So again, it was engaging with community projects. A project I'm working on now, we're getting the client to engage with community projects within their area, and you know, that's a really good sell factor. And also all of this we tracked, we kept the data, and lovely for your ESG reporting every year in your annual reports and stuff. So you know, that all ITV were extremely happy about that. So yeah, it was all very successful, wasn't it?
It was very good. Now, track record for ITV. So this, as I said, isn't new, and we started doing this way back when. Miss Kitchen, where are you? Where are you? Where are you?
Here.
There you are. Do you remember that?
I do.
Do you remember that? So Julie was helping us in 2011. Yeah, we had a good time there, didn't we? 2011. So we started off, we moved everybody out of Quay Street in the centre of Manchester. We were rebuilding Coronation Street, and we also took some office space next to the BBC in Media City. But we set a target for them. So again, when you're actually setting targets for these sort of projects, you can. And I set a target, and I said I would like as much of the things that we're going to use in that building in Manchester to be bought in the local area. So I set a radius of 30 miles. I'm from just outside Manchester, so I knew the area quite well. So this is what we're going to do. And we went out and we spent probably 2 or 3 weeks. We visited little factories, big factories, foundries, all sorts of places. So we bought, in the end, 60% of all of the items came from 30 miles, within 30 miles of Manchester. All the furniture came from Accrington. For those people who know Accrington, there's a big company there that make things, and they made all those for us, should I say. But 96% came from the UK. There was only 4% we couldn't. There were some of these, like orange box booths, but not quite booths. And the only place we could actually get them, we needed 4 of them, and the only place we could get them was Germany at the time. So we had to go to Germany and get those. It was a bit of a pain. But I nearly got 100% of everything procured in this country. And as I say, I'm really proud of the fact we got 60% procured within 30 miles of Manchester. We did subsequently a project in Leeds as well, and we did exactly the same things there. And I set Yorkshire as the boundary. So everything in Yorkshire for this if we can do it. And I think we did about 90%, but we didn't get to 100%. You can't, but we got 90%. So we've been doing this for a while. I built a Corrie Visitor Centre not too long ago. The cobbles, for those people who remember Corrie, if anybody watches it, were the original cobbles from the original set that was in Coronation Street in 1982. When we were coming out of that site, we were sort of walking around. There was all these cobbles. They're priceless. I mean, they are priceless. So I had the whole lot lifted and put into 4 containers. We then reused a load of them when we rebuilt Coronation Street itself. And then we came back afterwards and we built another street, Victoria Street, and we put more cobbles down there, but I still had some left. So when we built the visitor centre, all across the front of the visitor centre here, we put a load of cobbles. It's a nice story. And also the trees that were there were trees that were on common land before. We had to take these up because that's where our compounds were. So we took them all up, stuck them in skips, stuck them in our car park, left them there for best part of 2 years, 2.5 years, and brought them back and then replanted them back where we were. So it can be done. One of my favourite stories, we found an old disused cinema, and there were the old chairs. We were building a cinema for there, so we were quoted 25 grand or whatever, 30 grand for the chairs that we wanted. And we went, we paid £300 off eBay for these, and then we had to go collect them. So we went to a little place in Stretford, to an old disused furniture, and we took these out. And then one of my guys actually was an upholsterer, and he recovered them. So that was even cheaper for me to do. And he uphold them, and we put them in there. So again, it can all be done. They're all as good as new now. And then the last slide of this is Emmerdale. So anybody who watches Emmerdale again, you'll start to see these buildings come into new storylines starting in about 6 weeks' time. But we had a dilapidated farm that we had to rent because that was the track that took us down to the Emmerdale village. And we rented it, and the place was falling to pieces like this. And then in the end, we ended up having to do something. The scaffolding there is actually holding the gable wall up, and the cars went underneath it. So in the end, we got rid of it. But we rebuilt the whole lot. It all came down. We reused the stone. We had to use a mixture of old and new slates on the roofs when we did it. And then we rebuilt the barn, and then we put soda on the top while we were doing it. It's a perfect place for it. We put soda on the top, but we reused, again, probably 80% of all the materials that we took down, we put up. So it can be done. And then final slide, what we learned. So very, very similar to the learnings that you had earlier. I thought, what a similar slide. Set the sustainability goals at the same time as the project goals. So when everyone's talking about the project and all the finance people are going, all right, make sure that you set the sustainability goals at that point, not a bit later. Get your contractors and your service providers on board early and get a realistic view about what can be done. So you said it early, it's a realistic view. I got over it and went, right, I want to do all of this. And they went, you're having a laugh. Because I wanted to do really ridiculous things. But we didn't have time to do it. So we did as much as we could have done in that time. Involving the FM teams and the IT teams from the beginning, because it takes a lot more planning to organise reusing stuff than it is to just go and buy it, ship it, and bring it to site when you need it. Okay, you've got to go and find it, identify it, somebody has to go in it, get it out, test it, bring it, blah, 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 blah. It takes a lot longer to do that, but you need the teams right at the beginning. We were very, very lucky. We had a really good IT team working on my project, so I was very, very happy with that. Research the charity. This is where Donna spent forever. Where have you gone? Have you been on holiday? No. She was researching the markets that you could actually use to actually get rid of our stuff so that we could do it directly with people. You can go to resellers and things like that, but we wanted to do it directly with the people, and we did. But don't leave that till the end of the project. Look, people get 3/4 of the way through and go, all right, what can we do with all this stuff? Too late at that point. You'll just need to get rid of it. But don't leave that till the end. Record your wins as you go along. We'd forgotten about half the things that we'd done over the years. We'd forgotten about half the things that we'd done. It's just that we'd recorded it all in photos, so that helped us. But record your wins as you go along, because the team, the staff that you've got in your companies are really interested in this stuff, really interested. And those little wins like that, they think, what a good company we work for. If you can stagger your leases and floor acquisitions, then more can be reused. We were very lucky because we had a staggered bit, so I could literally empty one building as we were refitting that building and just refit the building. If you can do that, and again, a little lesson we learned here, when you take a building, don't take the whole building, right? Take a lease every floor separately and take them all at slightly different times. The landlord can't stop you doing that. Right, but take them all slightly at different times, because you can do that. We had 7 or 8 leases at Gray's Inn Road. We were able to release them literally one at a time, refit, move the stuff, move that to the new building. And then it costs less than you would pay for a new fit out, and it's quicker and great for the environment. So why would you do the sustainable things? The last 2 things though, and you've mentioned both of these, design things. I wish we'd have designed things in previous projects that you can easily take apart. We didn't use an interior designer for our move, okay? I was confident enough that Overbury, who've worked with us many times, and they did our last refurbishment, could do it. We didn't use an interior designer. We brought them in just when we needed that particular piece, like a specialist bit like a kitchen or whatever like that. They came in and did it, but we didn't use an interior designer. We did it ourselves. But I could have done so much more if only I could have taken. We left behind the nicest kitchens you've ever seen, right? And somebody's probably got them in their kitchen now because they'll have had time to take them apart. But we didn't have time to take them apart and bring them with us, and I wish we could. And the project programs, time, it's all about time again. If we'd have had more time, we could have used far more. I'd like to have done all 3 floors with carpet. And as it was, I only had time to get 1 floor done. It was an acre, so it's still 44,000 square feet. You know, but it was a big floor, but I would like to have done all 3, and I couldn't do it because we didn't have the time. So if you can allow time, it will pay back and you will have a much more sustainable project. And I think that is it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Ian and Donna, thanks for that. It's brilliant. And actually, it's great to see your lessons learned and JLL's, and I think they're very similar to us. I mean, you know, I talked at the start about everything that we've learned in the last 10 years going into our thinking of making it easy and mapping. And I think building on all of those 3 lessons together will be something that'll be really useful to do. Going to get into urban mining a bit more because I think that's probably where we need to be. But the time and all those lessons learned were brilliant. I'm aware there's probably some questions for you, so I can see that hanging.
There we go.
Kudos, well done, just amazing. My question's really dull, but I've taken loads of lessons away, so thank you. The warranty, the risk around that, the dullest question you're ever going to get.
That's pretty dull.
Okay, maybe mine's less dull than Nichols. Did you manage to get Overbury and their subcontractors to accept all of that risk, or what did you have to take as risk yourself?
A bit of a mixture. So some of it we had to take as risk, but we were happy to because we procured the stuff in the first place and we knew what we were getting. But they took, so for the equipment, for instance, for the hospitality space and things like that, they were happy to take the risk on that because they were with us. We got them to go and take it out. So you take it out for us and put it in the new place for us, look after it in the meantime. So they'd stored it for us and brought it back. So had it been damaged or whatever like that, they would have told us at the beginning. But they'd actually installed that about 3 or 4 years earlier themselves as well. So you kind of come from that contractor, through that contractor and back in again. So yeah, well, it was a bit of a mixture, but that's how we did it.
It's actually a cash flow question because I guess part of one of the challenges on this is you have to front load the costs on that. You mentioned that you had the finance director as essentially the sponsor for this project. Did that mean that you were able to, did you have to think about this up front, or did it become a challenge as part of the project?
No,
you know, delivering in terms of cash flow year 1 spend, year 2 spend, year 3 and so forth, and rejigging some of that. I paint a lovely picture of our finance director. In actual fact, he'd taken £2 million off us at the beginning of the project and said you have to do it for less, and we went, oh okay, fine. So we did that, and he said, but I want you to do it as sustainability as possible. Okay, how does this work? And that's kind of how it started. But in terms of writing it off and capexing it and things like that, we basically split it into 3 pots. We OPEX'd a lot,
We OPEXed a lot of it, but the 2 pots we kept was furniture which we'd bought. So we had to buy all these bits of furniture and booths and things like that. And then just the direct, we didn't actually CapEx a lot of, we just CapEx, what are we doing? We built an event space, kitchen, boardroom, and that was about it in terms of construction. So there wasn't a lot of CapEx actually in there as well, and they write that off over where. My company does strange things with money. Okay, and although very often many projects you do, they said no, just OPEX it, just get it done this year, thank you. You know, and that's the way we do it. So when we've got a lot of cash, which we tend to be a cash-rich company, or we used to be a cash-rich company, just let's use the cash. Don't worry about the rest of it.
Hey, we often hear the perception of, well, it's a new project, it's an exciting building, shouldn't it all be new? So was there any?
You couldn't have told the difference.
No.
No, but I know that, and you know that.
You couldn't have told.
You said some staff celebrated and thought it was brilliant, but did you have any anyone working against you, or there must be some barriers internally?
No, I think the biggest barrier to moving everywhere was the gender-neutral toilets. That was probably the biggest barrier.
By that, they forgot,
right? Because we were moving from a building which had separate toilets for everything to gender-neutral toilets. That was our biggest barrier, believe it or not.
And the commute, because we were 13 stops on the Central Line to West London, so they were a bit too busy with that.
But genuinely, you walk in there. So I've done many tours of this building now with people, and they can't believe that. Most of this is second-hand. That they're seeing, they think it's a brand new space, but
we brought all the brand and the look and feel, so they felt very at home. It wasn't a strange move, It was almost so, didn't it? It was the comfort blanket was there almost for them.
Yeah, it was good.
I've been in the industry a long time, and I've been down many rodeo routes. But I was surprised yesterday. I went to a big campus in the West Midlands, and they showed me around the building. And they had really cool graphics and tiny little business card sized notices on the corner of tables which said things like 60% of this furniture in this area came from our Birmingham office, or this table is made from plastic bottles. And I thought, why have I never thought about doing that?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's simple, isn't it? It's a good idea.
Things every day.
Yeah.
And it's all right telling people as part of the projects as a one-off, but it keeps that messaging going, doesn't it? For new people joining the company, they hear the same message, don't they?
We're just building a new reception with the BBC, so we've got a job. So we've got our reception, they've got a reception. We said, why don't we have one reception? So we're building one reception, but the reception desk is being made out of plastic, but made of melted down televisions. So all of this stuff, when it goes into landfill, this is just frames of plastic, and it's been melted down and repurposed, and that's going to be the actual.
And we were going to store all the televisions we didn't want in the end for that project, but it just took too long. It would have cost too much in storage, but that would have been a great story. Reuse all our redundancy, and in television we have a lot of redundant televisions.
People moving into this new space and having those gender neutral toilets.
Yep.
What was the reaction, and how did you deal with that?
We just said, get on with it. If you've got to go to the toilet,
After
these are
about
the
a
toilets,
week,
get
everyone
on
got
with
over
you
it.
know.
It was, as long as you have a very good cleaning regime, people just got over it.
Yeah,
It was fine.
We've got a superb cleaning regime.
Yeah,
and
that's
they get cleaned 3-4 times.
And also it was a lot about the journey as well. So I think the toilets was one they could easily moan about, but actually they didn't want to travel 13 stops on the Central Line. So some people moan about the things they're not really moaning, So the toilets got it, didn't it? Big
They're very
time.
good as well. They were refurbished. All the toilets were refurbished. We didn't take on the existing toilets. We refurbished everything, so that was all new.
Well, when you go to a restaurant or lots of places, they're gender neutral. So it was fine. People got over it very quickly, which was good.
I'm doing the
Yeah,
timekeeping
right, come on
thing,
then.
but listen, Donna, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.